Hi, and welcome to Saga of the Clone Saga, a podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know the gist by now. I'm Mike, alongside...
Matt.
And I'm Vincent. And today our sponsor is Bubble Wrap, because you need it when you want to safely package things. And it's very protective of whatever you're packaging. And it's protective because it's bubble wrap. And sometimes it pops. Okay, I'm done.
And you know what else pops?
Spider-Girl.
Yes, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in theaters Friday.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I kind of didn't even know that. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew it was coming out.
I just
but
remembered it's in theaters Friday.
I don't really care. So,
Special edition on a review?
I mean, we could. I don't think I'm going to see it.
I might get around to it this weekend. I don't know.
Well, would you go to see it if a bunch of us get together?
I'm not driving to Philadelphia to go
Not
see
you, Mike. I'm asking him. I mean, you can if you want to, but I meant Vince.
I'm also not driving. I'm not driving to Philly to see that movie.
All right. Well, let's talk about this offline and not
Okay.
in front of our
No, I want this to be the whole podcast.
in front of our
Figuring out our holiday plans.
imaginary audience.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about Spider-Girl, which is relevant of sorts because it's a splintered timeline which shoots off from a very crucial point in the Clone Saga, but also in this episode we kind of wrap back actual Clone Saga stuff because Spider-Girl ran for like over a decade and not everything had hardly anything at all to do with the Clone Saga. So we found the most Clone Saga related bullshit and jammed it into an episode. But first, let's talk about her origin, sort of. The first appearance of Spider-Girl in What If Volume 2, number 105. And the original What If series has a lot of famous issues. And the whole joke of What If is trying to count how many of them have actually come to fruition. That's a great gag. But the thing about the second series specifically is, for whatever reason, most of the issues in the second What If series, they just end in a really fucked up way. Because the whole point was, it's like it's supposed to be the Watcher, or sometimes the Watcher's not there, but often the Watcher is like, this is how things happened on Earth 616, but they could have happened like this, and it's always implied this is splinter timeline and everything. But the idea at the end of these, especially this second volume, is it's a good thing it didn't happen like this, because on this world everything gets totally fucked.
Right.
And way back in like the second or third episode, we did read another issue from this What If volume, where it was like Ben Reilly trying to take over Pete's life or something like that.
Okay.
But this one, it's a little different. There's no like fucked up ending. But I don't know if that's because it's way later into the run. So on the cover, we have a pinup basically of Spider-Girl with a boring white background. And the cover text is, "The next generation of Spidey excitement starts here." This is released at the very end of 1997.
Okay.
Cover date is early 98.
Well, he's not here this episode. Is Billy alive yet? I still don't think he is.
He might be like early 98. My brother's 3 years younger than me and was born October 98. So Billy may be early 98. I mean, I'm old. I don't know.
We're all old.
So we open this book and we're quickly actually introduced to Mayday via a profile paragraph on like an editorial page. And our quick description that we get with our first exposure is that obviously she's the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson, and she's a high school basketball star.
Yeah, and the narration. I want to touch on narration throughout this entire book, and actually throughout the entire Spider-Girl series. Apparently, is written in second person, and I hate it.
It's not. It's a weird choice.
Yeah, it's very strange, or unique at least. I don't have that much of a problem with it.
I can't stand reading like that. I can't do it.
I almost like, I don't know. I feel like if you're trying to make a book for younger readers, do you think maybe that perspective might work better or be easier to empathize with if you're aiming for younger readers?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Which, I mean, this book, the Spider-Girl series, like, kind of was supposed to be an all ages title, kind of not. I mean, we're still at a point where a lot of Marvel's titles, just in general, are hypothetically supposed to be for all ages. But Spider-Girl was definitely one of those series where Marvel, it was one of the first series that Marvel experimented with, like, digest size trades in the mass market and stuff like that, which
Right.
they later latch onto a lot more with the early stuff in the Ultimate line, and then Runaways and the Tsunami imprint and stuff like that. The creative team here, we have Tom DeFalco writing it, and he's basically in charge of this entire Splinter universe and Spider-Girl. And Ron Frenz gets co-plotting here. And Ron Frenz and Tom DeFalco, they collaborated way back in the 80s on Spider-Man, and then late 80s, early 90s on Thor. And at a certain point, I think like halfway through the Thor run, Friends just started co-plotting a lot of the stuff with DeFalco. So they had a very close relationship. Friends draws this book, but I didn't, this was unexpected to me. Bill Sienkiewicz is back to ink/do finishes on a Spider-Man book. What did you guys think of the art in just this issue?
I think it's fine. I think it's serviceable.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine. There are like two scenes at a certain point in the book with MJ where it really made me think back to the Buscema Sienkiewicz team.
Right.
And there are maybe a few other scenes where you can see a lot of Sienkiewicz influence, but it doesn't really look like a Sienkiewicz book to me, and less so than any point during the Clone Saga when he was around.
I think this is probably better than that was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we start with Mayday. She's on the basketball court. Again, there's the weird narration perspective. And I guess her spider senses help her play, but she doesn't fully understand it. And I was trying to think of this. I mean, obviously, we've talked endlessly about how contradictive and nonsensical spider sense is displayed. But like, if you're either very experienced with spider sense and can like slightly fine tune it, or if you're not experienced and have no idea what you're doing, would there be an application in sports? Even more so than basketball, like for example in football, could you use spider sense in a contact sport?
I think it would depend on what position you play.
Because I mean, they're not villains and shit, and they're not going to kill you, but someone's about to tackle you.
I think.
Well, if you're a quarterback and someone's about to hit you on the blind side, that would probably help you a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like it would activate it.
I think so. I think it definitely would.
So that I feel like sports is one of those gray areas where stupid spider sense usage might be excusable.
Yeah.
And then she wins the game by just this insane dunk.
Yeah, she pulls a Shaquille O'Neal back-breaking dunk that also launches her through midcourt.
Yes. So her parents are worried that she may have inherited powers. And I think in our entire reading, they never get into the like kind of genetics explanation or anything of how she has powers.
Right.
Which I believe it was just like passed down because weird blood genetics or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
I used to like be half confused and think maybe somehow she's a mutant, but that doesn't really make sense.
No, really.
And then we catch up with her parents. Peter Parker has a cool white streak in his hair. He has goatee.
Like Doctor Strange.
And he has a limp, which we later learn is a prosthetic. He's missing part of his leg. It's never entirely clear how much. Well, he gets a prosthetic later. I think it's past his knee. But what do you guys think of Peter Parker's appearance?
I didn't like it at first, but it kind of grew on me.
I just want to know why he looks like Doctor Strange and Tony Stark mixed together.
I think the streak is cool. I'm not totally sure how I feel about the goatee.
Right, yes.
And MJ just has a shorter haircut. She looks a little older. I was okay with that too. I think she actually looks kind of cool. She's not as drastically different.
Yeah.
And as she was on the basketball court, we're slowly getting introduced to some of Mayday's supporting cast. And basically, she's torn between her jock friends and the science club because everyone loves Mayday.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine.
Whatever.
I mean, it's somewhat like how certain people were arguing about Homecoming and Flash Thompson. And some people were being like, those kinds of bullies don't exist. And it's like, they kind of do.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's a little bit more nuance here where, like, the jocks, some of these jock types are just, like, totally cool with Mayday. Like, one of them is actually a dick. And then one of her science nerd friends is, like, kind of, like, ratty. So it's a little bit more nuanced. Of course, there are dumb bully types. And we slowly get fed some of the backstory and how this differs from the Clone Saga. So when she was 2 years old as a baby and was with her parents, Peter Parker as Spider-Man fought Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin, and Norman died during it. And I think way later we might actually see more details on how he actually died. But towards the end, as we'll get to later, we did some skimming because it becomes less relevant. And that is also when Peter lost his leg. So he retired as Spider-Man, and now he works in a police lab. So basically, he's Barry Allen.
This page with the flashback, sorry, and the explanation of like what happened to Pete. There's one panel with Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin that is kind of beautiful. I think it's the best part of the book. So I wanted to point that out.
The thing is, if I remember the panel you're talking about, I'm pretty sure they repeat that exact panel like every 2 issues in this as we go on.
Really?
Yeah, are you talking about the one where they're both like up like this across?
Yeah. It's a really cool picture.
Yeah, it's a nice scene. What do you guys think of Peter Parker's new job, which we never really get like too into in these issues?
I like it.
It's fine.
It's kind of cool. Like, it's not fully. I'm not certain how he transitions from freelance photographer / occasional like more sciencey lab stuff to forensics.
I mean, I think the easy
pretty convenient as far as.
In the rundown of the book at the beginning, it said he went back to school and got his PhD. He could have easily just like switched his major to forensics and done that.
Okay. So in this universe, Peter Parker may have a definitive major, but we don't actually get told it, so it still doesn't count.
Right.
But Mayday is walking home with some of her geek friends, and they get ambushed by the Green Goblin, who throws a pumpkin bomb and passes along a message for Peter Parker to meet him at the bridge.
And everyone knows what that is now.
Yeah, but they don't clarify which bridge wisely because, again, go back to like our very first episode, and which bridge it is not entirely clear.
It is. It's the George Washington Bridge.
It's not drawn that way.
Pete freaks the hell out, and he's fairly certain that it can't be Norman, it can't be Harry, because he saw them die. But it's like you know, because Norman totally didn't escape death once already.
Right.
You saw him die in front of you, and then he came back, and then you saw him die in front of you again. Why couldn't it happen again? And despite the fact that he knows that there are other Green Goblins, there was what was Bart Hamilton, I think, the shitty one, and then obviously Phil
Phil.
Urich,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure at this juncture if Pete ever knew that it was Phil Urich, but he knew that there was a like good guy Green Goblin. But he just jumps right to it being Normie Osborn, who he calculates it would be around 20 years old or so at this point. And he calls up Foggy Nelson, who in this universe actually continued his relationship and got married to Liz Osborn / Liz Allen. And Liz suddenly has like cancer, maybe, and we never really get back to that.
It's implied that somehow that I thought like it was implied that Normie's somehow the reason why she's in the hospital, but they don't go into that either. That's what I was first thinking, but no.
Yes. Normie goes back and forth on whether he's protective and loves his mother or is a little shit who hates her. Because he's mad about her being in the hospital, I'm pretty sure, at a certain point. And then, like, one page later, he's calling her a bitch that he doesn't care if she died. But then, of course, and this is just, I thought this was funny. So Peter Parker and Mary Jane have managed to hide the whole Spider-Man stuff from Mayday for like 15 years. She's never heard or seen anything. And then this one thing happens, and I'm sure other things have popped up, minor things every once in a while. And Pete and MJ decide to get into an argument, well, a conversation, like right in their living room, like not. And Mayday, it's the classic kid hiding on the stairs, overhearing their parents argue. And so Mayday just is like, "Oh, I have superpowers, and my dad's Spider-Man." Like, you think at least go out in the backyard to talk about that?
Maybe it's cold out.
Yeah. And Pete was right. It is Normie, and he is a super cringe edgelord.
It's amazing.
That is a beautiful tattoo, is it not?
Yeah, this page is awesome. He has like actual white people dreadlocks. I mean, it's really just the exact same hair texture that they always do with the Osborns.
White dreadlocks?
But it goes like it's actually long. It goes all the way down. So you have to just assume it's some kind of weird braids or dreads.
Yep.
And you should never really have to think that hard about the Osborn's hair. Because it gets uncomfortable.
What's great about his design is the banner on his back says "Honor thy father, kill the spider."
Yep.
Now he seems to be pretty close. He seems to be pretty close with May later on.
But what about his chest tattoo that has a upside down spider logo with the scripture of revenge across his chest?
But that stuff's permanent. It means later when he's over there kissing Mayday.
Yeah, he has a tattoo of a knife stuck in his chest.
Oh, so he's Brock Lesnar.
It's pretty great.
It's amazing.
It's really hilarious, and he has full sleeves and everything too. And then so we just see him. Pete hasn't met him yet, and so then Pete is running around trying to get people to help him. So first he goes to the Fantastic Five, which is composed of the Human Torch, the Thing, who has some kind of like cybernetic arm thing, which you barely see in this panel, but it's like shown a little bit in pieces with cameos later. Elijah, who I was very happy to see, and of course, this is Tom DeFalco, that was his run on Fantastic Four again. And there's this generic blonde looking guy, which is Franklin, the Psylord. And the fifth in this shot, I guess it's Herbie.
Yeah.
Way later, I mean, I think the thing is that in this because this is the first appearance of MC2 timeline, some things are a little iffy, and it takes about a year of the whole imprint for DeFalco to fully figure out what he wants on rosters and stuff like that. because later we don't really see Herbie, but we see Big Brain, which is like this dumb android that Reed created, which somehow has his like mental abilities, but Sue's like force field powers. Because Reed and Sue, like I think Sue gets sick, and then Reed and Sue are off doing something. So they're off the table for much of this line. But the Fantastic Four are not home. So then he goes to Avengers Mansion and sees the current Avengers, which I'll get to in a second. But I'll spoil it and say that he bails on them after realizing that most of them are kids.
Well, this is I want to say this is an Avengers team only Vincent Faust can love.
Well, I don't even love. I mean, I don't love the team. I just love. I don't know. So let's get into it. This isn't even technically the Avengers. The Avengers disbanded at some point before this, and so this is like the replacement Avengers that stay in Avengers Mansion with Jarvis. But this is next. And this lineup is, I guess, in this issue, it's sort of implied that Jubilee is the leader. That's at least based on the framing. That's how I picked it up.
This is already terrible.
And the Vision is here, and he's just their computer, I guess now. Gets no lines or anything. Speedball is there. That's great.
No, it's not.
He would be a great Avenger. And then there is Thunderstrike, J2, and Jolt. So Jolt doesn't matter at all. And what I was saying earlier is like Jolt kind of disappears at a certain point and fades into the background because DeFalco was like, I don't know why I created this character. I don't have anything to say or interesting about it. So they're gone. And here are more A-Next members that actually are interested in. So this Thunderstrike is the son of the dead Thunderstrike, Eric Masterson. This is Kevin Masterson. When Eric Masterson died, which he did in the main universe at the end of his ongoing series, and that happened in this universe as well, when he died, it was in his will, which Jarvis executed, to give his mace, Thunderstrike, which is both his weapon and his superhero name, to bestow Thunderstrike to his son, Kevin. But Kevin has not met any Asgardians, doesn't have any superpowers, so he can't lift the mace. But of course, it's still this Asgardian enchanted mace, so Loki gets involved, some shit happens, and instead of actually like somehow getting the ability to lift the mace, he absorbs the mace into his like soul, and so he doesn't use the mace. He does not use the Thunderstrike. He just has like super strength, and he just has the abilities of Thunderstrike, but through his body. And
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, some of the MC2 stuff is confusing because parts of it eventually leak into the 616 universe. Because this Thunderstrike, Kevin Masterson, also becomes Thunderstrike in 616, like 10 years from now. And in that, he actually does get to use his father's mace. And in fact, he is currently appearing in as Guardians of the Galaxy, which is somehow an ongoing comic book that Marvel publishes.
Oh yeah, I forgot that's a book.
So our next member that I want to point out is J2.
Yeah.
J2 is Juggernaut's son, and in this timeline, similar to the main universe again, but with different points, the Juggernaut reforms and he joins the X-Men, and it's more permanent in this, but maybe it's not because he just disappears at some point. Like it's not even said that he's dead. He just on some mission something happened and he's gone. And J2 inherited his powers, and the thing with Juggernaut is like complicated and don't make sense because it's like this dumb alternate dimension enchanted gem demon thing, which has nothing to do with mutants, which is all the X-Men is all about. And so somehow his son got it, and you don't really get to see it in this issue, and I don't think we really see much of enough of J2 again. But as part of his costume, besides the whole Juggernaut getup, he wears one of his dad's flannel shirts tied around his waist.
J2 is great.
Yeah, I love J2.
He's my favorite NC2 character.
You should pick up his miniseries.
He has a miniseries?
Yeah. J2 had a miniseries. There was an A Next ongoing, which didn't last super long. Buzz, who we get later, had a miniseries, and so did Dark Devil.
That's amazing.
And there were a few MC2 events. And there were Fantastic Five series as well. So Mayday, she is experimenting with her powers in the gym. And there's a kind of interesting moment where she realizes, she's like, well, I'm not really that great at basketball. I just have superpowers. And
here's the thing with that scene and the double back with the basketball scene. Someone read this Mark Webb read this comic and was like, I'm going to take those two scenes and put them in the Amazing Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, with the skateboard scene.
Yeah, but instead with the using the powers, I'm going to put it for some reason in the docks, and I'm going to put Coldplay to it. But the backboard breaking scene does happen in Amazing Spider-Man, just not during a basketball game.
But I like Mayday's look when she's in civilian clothes. It's like really perfect for this era. In this issue, she's wearing a crop top with an open flannel shirt, baggy jeans, small hoop earrings, and throughout she has like this short cropped hair.
But with the big thick circled 90s glasses though.
Yeah. And now, since I'm noting the era and her clothing and stuff, for some reason this got me on a tangent.
Oh god.
So let's look at the Billboard chart for December 1997. The number one single on the top of the charts is Elton John's 1997 version of Candle in the Wind, which was his tribute to the recently passed Princess Diana. Also high on the charts, we have LeAnn Rimes. The highest charting rap music is by Mace. We have Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
All right.
Yes. That's a bumper.
Lots of boy bands. And lower down on the charts, we have Third Eye Blind, Semi-Charmed Life.
All right.
We have some Fiona Apple. And similar to the Princess Diana tribute, we have Puff Daddy's I'll Be Missing You, the tribute to the recently passed Biggie.
Wow.
So it was a great year for music.
Oh, wait, this was 1997, right?
Yeah.
Oh, which would mean that Puff Daddy's collaboration with Jimmy Page in the 97 Godzilla movies also happening this year.
God.
That song's not terrible, but it's just this great encapsulation of what the fuck was 1997.
Yeah, I double checked the rock charts as well, and the highest charting rock single, which I don't know why the Elton John single wouldn't be on that chart. I don't know, but the highest charting rock single was the live version of Led Zeppelin's it's like Girl I Love, or I forget what the song's called, but because they're like Led Zeppelin's like huge major like giant live album compilation came out in 97.
Okay.
But enough with 1997 in music. Without Pete being there, and it's not even like it's not implied that she discussed this with him. MJ just explains literally everything to Mayday. She's like, this is your dad's backstory. This is how long he was Spider-Man. And here's his costume. And here's your uncle's costume. We see Uncle Ben. And it's weird because like it's super clear in this scene that Mayday is hinting and teasing. Like, this seems like a family legacy. This is a responsibility that people have to uphold. And she's like very clearly hinting at wanting to get in the costume or like feeling that she's supposed to. And MJ just like doesn't acknowledge it or doesn't resist it at all. So Pete, since he couldn't get into contact with any of his friends or the teenagers who have replaced his friends, he shows up to the bridge, and Normie starts throwing a fit because he didn't show up in costume, because the Osborns are all fetishists. And then he's even more upset because he's got the strap on him.
Yep.
He's a cop. And then MJ shows up and, of course, gets taken hostage. And this whole time, Normie just is like a little bitch. And then out of nowhere,
calling him Norman
Yeah,
instead
actually.
of Normie, though.
Normie refers to them as his aunt and uncle, but
Yeah.
earlier Pete says he hasn't seen Normie or talked to Liz in forever.
But they babysat them at some point.
Right.
yeah, so I don't, maybe they were, well, because Mayday also says, like, hey, I used to play with you. So maybe it was just like around when they were like 5 or 6, they split off or something.
Continuity doesn't matter.
Or maybe I was thinking when Pete said he hasn't talked to him since forever, he meant like back during the Clone Saga forever. But maybe I just misread that.
Yeah. Well, Mayday does say they used to play together.
Yeah.
And on that note, we get a splash page, which I thought this was one of the best pages that we read today.
Yes.
Of Mayday in costume with a dive kick, a great like pinup kind of pose, and she says, "Face it, Tiger! You just hit the jackpot."
That was smart callback right there. That was good.
That's good.
The caption where she tries to explain why she's using it and where she got it from, they don't really make sense.
Oh, that's stupid.
Nope.
But
Nope. It doesn't need to be there.
She's like, my mom told me the whole backstory on this phrase, but it's like, then you'd know it doesn't really actually make sense in context here.
Yeah.
Or maybe it does, as we'll get to later. But I fucking love this page.
It's great.
No, it's
Although,
good.
if Ben Riley was a grown adult man, how does his costume fit a 15-year-old girl?
Yeah, that's one thing I've always wondered, and I think you just don't think about it. Or maybe there's like a superhero vacuum seal thing for legacy heroes, where you put on your mentor's costume and then you hook up something
Well, wait.
in it.
How many legacy heroes actually wear their mentor's costume?
The Flash.
That takes too much thinking.
Sandman doesn't. Wally West made his own. He never wore Barry's at all. Kyle Rayner made his own suit. So I don't think as many as you think.
I may have to come back to that because that is an interesting question. But yeah, she's wearing Ben Riley's suit, which is an interesting choice. I don't know why I guess she just finds her missing dead uncle, more intriguing. Doesn't want to wear her dad's stuff. But there's
my theory is that so the book looks different. So if someone were looking at the shelves, like if you're just glancing, probably like just glancing at covers, you're just thinking you might just mistake that for Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my theory.
But there's a quick fight. She outsmarts Normie because he's shitty, even though this is her first time ever in a costume. It's not really discussed whether Normie has been fucking around for a little bit, but she ends up saving his life from getting hit by a car. And she has a great like Mortal Kombat get over here moment.
Yeah.
Where she shoots out her web, pulls him in, and then knocks him out. And then things wrap up. Normie is suddenly immediately fucking crazy. And maybe it's from her punching him so hard. Foggy quickly says that Daredevil is dead, but obviously that could be bullshit because Daredevil fakes his death all the time. But we'll get to later, Daredevil is dead.
Right.
And that is quite the story.
Yes.
And in the end of this issue, Pete, MJ, and Mayday, they burn the costume, but then the final panel, Mayday either found or made herself like schematics to make it again. So it's kind of implied like she just goes behind her parents' back and is like, I'm going to be a superhero anyway.
Probably.
And so that would initially be the what we could have just read, like, oh, Spider-Girl splinters off, let's read her debut issue. But let's touch on dive a little bit into her series and some Clone Saga related stuff. We're jumping all the way ahead to 2002, and Spider-Girl is an ongoing series. Years in, we're starting with Spider-Girl 44.
Well, and it's funny because now we're in 2002, the fashion trends have also changed, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's still reminiscent. I mean, it's hard to tell. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but we'll get to that. At this point, the Spider-Girl has spawned a whole alternate universe and occasional full-fledged spin-off imprint, the MC2. And MC2, I think it's sort of supposed to stand for Marvel Comics 2, and that's kind of dumb. But MC,
yeah, it's a sequel to Marvel Comics.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean it doesn't have some sort of subtitle that we're supposed to spend months trying to figure out what the significant meaning of it is? And then all be mad when it's just something like Endgame?
Yep. So the MC2 Spider-Girl was the core of the line, kind of like the Ultimate Universe eventually with Ultimate Spider-Man. And you had lots of spin-offs in the beginning, but most of those died off by 2001, which this is after. But then you had a little bit of a comeback around 2006 to 2008 where they tried more spin-offs. And as I said, there were like 2 events. It was like Last Planet Standing is one of them, I'm pretty sure. They got Galactus involved. And this is still DeFalco, of course. He's pretty much in charge of the entire imprint. I'm not sure that, in fact, I think he may have written literally everything except for fill-ins.
As far as I know.
Much of the Spider-Girl series is actually drawn by Pat Olive, who is a Spidey legend in his own right before this from Untold Tales of Spider-Man with Kurt Busiek. He drew that whole series. And so we're jumping into the new status quo. Mayday is a full-fledged superhero Spider-Girl, and we open with Pete refilling her web cartridges, and he decides, oh, I forgot you're wearing my dead clone brother's costume. I can unlock this impact webbing and stingers for you, which we're finally getting to 40 issues later, despite the fact that she's used those web shooters since the very beginning of her superhero career.
Yeah, I'm wondering why it took this long to get there.
Well, the thing is also that I don't think she really he doesn't actually get to that, or she doesn't use them within the rest of the stuff we read.
No.
So I don't know when she ever actually uses that. But I liked this dynamic they have. He's this fun, overprotective, but supportive, retired superhero dad.
Yeah.
He's getting mad at her for not watching her web cartridge ammo supply, and then teases her about how he never made mistakes as Spider-Man, and then has a laugh with MJ.
No, he's a dick about it. He's like, I never made mistakes, and was literally saying it seriously, and then he looked at MJ, and then she was reminding him, no, you're fucking awful.
Yeah, but it's it's a serious way in that only your dumb teenager will take it seriously.
Yeah.
It's not really malicious.
Yes.
And now we get introduced to Mayday's superpowered friends, who are currently doubting her because she made a deal in desperation with these Faces villains family. And that stuff doesn't really matter. It comes up later, but I don't really understand it because we don't get given the full context.
They're a rip-off Royal Flush Gang, aren't they?
Something like that. So we get it later, but I don't even think it's actually in this first issue. Did you guys guess what the name of this squad of superheroes were calling themselves?
No.
No.
The X-Men. The Next Men.
No, that's a John Byrne creation, Matt.
It is referenced on page at some point later, but that may have been a skim section. They are the New Warriors.
That's why they suck. Okay.
So
Dark Devil's cool.
So let's go through some of the members.
Cool.
We have Green Goblin, which is Phil Urich, who has to be in his 30s at this point. So he's kind of like the experienced guy, but he's not the leader. We have Raptor, who is the thing is okay, yeah. So Vulture 2 is Blackie Drago, right?
Yes.
So I believe she's Blackie Drago's daughter. Her real name is Brenda, but she also goes by Blackie as a nickname, which is her villain father. And she dates Normie Osborn, but then there's like some love triangle stuff later on. But eventually, after this, she gets married to Normie Osborn, and also not referenced at all in this. I think it might happen after this. Normie Osborn eventually gets the Venom symbiote.
What?
So that's how he gets back on the field since Phil Urich took back the Green Goblin identity.
Okay.
And in fact, before this, at some point, and it's very lightly referenced here, Phil Urich, instead of the Green Goblin, he was going by the Golden Goblin for a little bit.
Why?
I don't know. Now, really, let's get into Dark Devil.
Yes, let's get into Dark Devil.
Dark Devil is like some
Fuck this asshole.
He's like some cosmic Ghost Rider type shit.
Dark Devil's amazing.
This is how convoluted this is. He's the son of Ben Reilly and Elizabeth Tyne, partially raised by Kane, but he's basically has two possessions battling within him. The soul, he's possessed by Zarathos, linked to Ghost Rider, and the soul of Matt Murdock.
No.
Which allows him to access all of Daredevil's like muscle memory and stuff like that.
That's not how his powers work.
That's amazing. Dark Devil's the best.
No, he's terrible.
After J2, it's Dark Devil.
And what's funny is we get a subplot later on of Raptor, Normie Osborn, and Dark Devil in their civilian clothes, and it's like clear that Dark Devil has no idea who they are, despite his powers. It's pretty dumb because Raptor has
so stupid.
Raptor has some subplot where she was framed or was manipulated, so she's being charged with crimes. Now Buzz, who I like his costume, I feel like it's one of the Slinger's costumes, but I don't think it is. But it definitely looks like it is one of the Slinger's costumes. Buzz is Jack J.J. Jameson, the son of John Jameson, and guess who his mother is?
Gwen Stacy.
No.
Janet Van Dyne.
Ashley Kafka.
What?
Why?
Because
John worked with her.
And he has a special exosuit which was developed by his grandmother and some other people, and it's supposed to replicate like insect powers, something. And it's actually pretty similar to the Irredeemable Ant-Man setup, where someone else was like highly trained and supposed to use this suit as like an agent of the government or something, and Jack Jameson was in the wrong place at the wrong time and ended up with the suit. And it's just an exosuit which gives him dumb insect-related powers. Basically just like the things that you think of Janet Van Dyne, like like the little shock things and stuff like that.
Can he shrink?
No, no shrinking. I don't think so. And then we have Lady Hawk as well, who isn't as interesting, at least from behind the scenes. She's not related to anyone or anything like that, so therefore I don't care. I think her dad's like a mob boss, but who cares? And back to some of Mayday's regular supporting cast. There's some high school drama shit going around, and Pete comes into Midtown High and meets Mayday for lunch because he needs to talk to her about some serious stuff. And at first, she's worried that it's about the baby because MJ is pregnant with her second child, who eventually is born as Benjamin Parker, who goes by Benji. And at some point, way later on, Benji is attached to the Carnage symbiote, which is very reminiscent of how Dan Slott attached the Carnage symbiote to Normie Osborn.
It's almost exactly the same.
A dumb little Carnage child who gets in the way of Spider-Man.
The Red Goblin.
Benji also later goes on to be a very important player in Spider-Verse.
Yeah. Spider-Girl eventually gets wrapped up. The Spider-Verse franchise, unfortunately, as it is.
Yeah.
One minor cool thing is it sort of allows Spider-Girl to limp along. And so then in this discussion that she has with her father, Mayday finally gets her father's origin story.
Yeah, this was also weird.
Super late. And then, of course, in the very first issue, MJ has her like whole talk with Mayday, and most of it's off panel. And so, like, I guess it didn't necessarily make sense to bring up the whole burglar thing when you're explaining to your daughter that your husband is a superhero. But again, this is like 44 issues in, kind of strange. And then, as part of the origin, obviously, he's talking about the burglar and Uncle Ben and everything like that. And then she's like, "What about my Uncle Ben?" Which I was actually expecting like way more of an emotional moment or anything or something, because this is how I had hyped up this issue to myself.
Yep.
But actually, it's really just a Clone Saga recap in 2 pages. We get
it's rather unremarkable.
Yeah, we get some recycling of the very iconic scenes of the rooftop running into each other, and then the double drop kick. One of the best Clone Saga ones.
Yeah.
And then as we head towards the end of this issue, some dork with magnetic gear wants to be a superhero. So of course he goes to the superhero costume shop, but he can't afford his suit, so he throws a tantrum, which accidentally temporarily turns him into a villain. Mayday stops him just through talking and like, "Hey, my day sucks too." And I don't think it's necessarily perfect here, but it's always cool when there's those kinds of encounters in superhero books. And since she had to deal with that, she's late to class, and so she gets assigned an extra book to read, which is The Hobbit.
That's my favorite.
And then this issue ends with 2 big cliffhangers. We have Pete finally meeting with Johnny, and he's going to get back in the suit and become Spider-Man again. And someone robs May's locker, including her costume.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Now, I had hyped up Spider-Girl 44, assuming that it was going to be way more relevant to Ben Reilly. It was not.
No.
But it was also sort of the start of this like Clone Saga repeat, but it's totally not at all. But then in the very end, sort of is. So I'm going to quickly go through Spider-Girl 45 through 50 and 52.
Well, real quick, I
is
think
a-
something significant that we didn't really touch on, when Pete is explaining Ben Reilly to May, he completely dances around the clone word.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And clone is not mentioned once. And I'm wondering if that's an insecurity from Pete, or if the editorial team's like, don't put the word clone anywhere in this.
Yeah, I have no idea because even he's like he's he explains Ben as sort of my cousin, but we're close as brothers. And it's like I guess you have to explain that because if he was actually your brother, then Mayday would presumably know way more about him.
Right.
Yeah, it's an awkward conversation. And it's like
And he's also like, we have the same powers from like the same exact thing. Don't worry about it.
yeah, there's basically this issue did not remotely do what I thought it did.
No.
And I assume Mayday gets some of those answers eventually. So I have no idea. It's probably like some very minor thing where she just randomly learns, oh, it's a clone.
Yeah, I guess.
Especially as some of the status quo evolves, which I'll get into.
Okay.
So Spider-Girl 45, we have the first appearance of Felicity Hardy, the Black Cat's daughter. Her father is Flash Thompson, and that relationship was like setting up and then disappeared kind of towards the very end of the Clone Saga, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Felicia dated Flash to make Pete jealous.
When was that? Was that before the Clone Saga, or are you talking about what we read?
No, before the Clone Saga.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure, right? Like during the very end of the Clone Saga, Flash and Felicia, I think they were still dating or they were dating again, and it actually seemed like somewhat organic.
I don't
Like
remember that,
somewhat
but
serious.
you're probably right.
But Felicity Hardy, she wears a choker, which is nice.
She's
And
also
she is,
obnoxious.
yeah, she's pretty annoying. She is suspected as the locker thief. MJ and Felicia meet up, and we learn that she's divorced Flash, and she references her lifestyle, and this keeps coming up. And way later, it's the full reveal is that she's dating a woman and she's bisexual. And there are like awkward scenes with her daughter where Felicity's like, "You shacked up with that woman," and she's like, "I don't like your lifestyle, mom."
Wait, I want you
And,
to stay in that voice for the rest of the podcast.
and it's just like really, I don't know. I guess it's like it's somewhat believable, but it's also super awkward. And of course, usually these situations are, at least often it seems, in reverse,
Mm-hmm.
based on how society evolves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Normie again. Suddenly, he's a good guy.
He cut
Yep.
those dreadlocks off and become a fully functioning member of society because he's a good guy.
He wears shirts now, but we still get to see most of his sleeves. And I think this is before Venom, or even when he eventually gets the Venom stuff, he doesn't really use it much. So he's basically just like Spider Girl's Q, or like her computer monitor guy. Really, just someone that she can occasionally talk to for exposition. And it's funny, like real quick later, I think they only use the term once, but his like their lair together is called the Spider Trap, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I like that.
And then the Fantastic Five come back in because Peter Parker needs a fake flag, and this is where we get introduced to Big Brain, which is a really dumb looking design. Then Mayday, in her civilian clothes, runs into some girl dressed as Spider Girl, who is interrogating a classmate. And of course, it's Felicity, who also brings some bondage gear along with her.
As one does.
And again, this is almost similar. It's like the reverse of the basketball scene where she's like, "Oh, I'm not actually good at basketball. I just have powers." Where Felicity's like, "You're lucky with powers. Me and my mom, we have to work out. We have to have gimmicks and stuff like that." I mean, it's not really special, but it's just interesting. I mean, it's like a very, very simplified version of conversations that Batman and Superman would have together or something like that.
Yeah.
And so she figures out who has been robbing all these lockers. It's some dumb high school drama, and the stupidest part is that there's this like subplot or world building thing where all these girls in Midtown High buy Spider-Girl costumes and secretly have them in their lockers because they think Spider-Girl is cool. Like it's not like it's implied they wear them or anything like that. They just have them. And they're embarrassed by them. And so that's just the really weird way to get away with Mayday's identity not being revealed. And Felicity, her whole motivation this time is that she wants to prove herself and be Spider-Girl's sidekick. And really, like, it's teased that she's like trying to blackmail for it, but she never actually does. She's just very annoying.
Yep.
And then Spider-Girl gets a call from Stinger, and Stinger is Cassie Lang. And the Faces, villain family, whatever, they're up to some shit. The cliffhanger in this issue is that Kane is tracking down Allison Mongrain, the woman who took Mayday as a baby from MJ in the hospital.
I can't believe this character's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's where we'll get into some actual Clone Saga stuff.
And then she spends like 3 issues just sitting on a bed putting together a rifle.
Yeah, and so 45 I actually like paid mostly attention to. These next few issues I just skimmed through, but it's still quite a few issues.
Yeah.
So we've got some stuff to run through.
Cool.
So 46, this is it's kind of a cool cover in a way.
Yeah.
There's a girl in Ben's hoodie costume. Obviously, we can guess who it is. And we meet Mainframe, another member of A Next, who's basically Tony Stark's robot son. Tony was just like, I want the Iron Man legacy to continue, but like I don't have a child or some stupid kid to force my legacy on, so I'm just gonna make a robot. And like it's not like it has Tony's like memories or anything like that. It's just a sentient robot with like Iron Man armor.
He does have the black and gold color scheme from Marvel Now, though.
Yeah. And Mainframe, he usually co-leads the team with American Dream, who is referenced here, but we never actually see. And American Dream is the MC2 version of Captain America, basically, and it's Shannon Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And she has giant flowing blonde hair coming out of her mask. It's kind of strange that we never see her. Well, no, I think we see her way later.
We see her like once.
And then Mayday keeps running into Felicity, and there's a scene where she basically destroys a chimney, but not really. She destroys like one of those tiny chimney exhaust pipe kind of deals.
Yeah, it counts.
Peter and Phil, they know all about each other's costume antics and legacies and family. And I wasn't sure where they were talking and stuff. I don't know if Phil works with Peter in his day job. I don't really know what Phil's up to. And there's a funny line at some point in one of these scenes where Felicity is bugging Mayday, where Mayday jokes only a sick wacko would enlist the help of a teen sidekick. Marvel making some Batman jokes over here. And then for like 2 issues, the plot just completely goes in another direction and starts making no sense and having no connection to anything, because a fucking giant scroll crashes into the Baxter building and starts a giant fight. and I don't know what it has. Yeah, but we kind of basically get Bombastic Bagman for like 5 pages,
which is cool.
fun. But it's not. He doesn't have a bag on his head. He has some kind of mask thing, and I don't know if it's specifically supposed to be this, but it reminds me of the dumb mask that the Thing wore during the Falco's run when he got like an acid burn. And through that run, he kept refusing to take it off because the burn was so bad. But then when he eventually takes it off, obviously it gets worse because that's what happens to wounds when you don't treat them.
Reminded me of the Man in the Iron Mask.
Then and during that scene, there's a great moment where Pete and Mayday do the dual drop kick, just like he did with her uncle.
Yeah.
And then there's an awkward scene of Franklin Richards hitting on 15-year-old Mayday for a gag. And I think this is actually way more inappropriate than it's even played off here, because I think Franklin should be. I'm not sure how old Franklin should be. But that's all confusing because, especially like during the DeFalco Fantastic Four run, which is kind of picking up from, for much of that, Franklin was messed up with time travel shit. So he may have been older in that run than he is here. It doesn't make any sense. And then, real quick, these issues also had a backup involving Spider-Man from the main universe and Jay Leno hanging out. And I don't really know or care what happens in it. I'm not a fan of Jay Leno. But the thing of note here is the creative team. For one, it's drawn by motherfucking Greg Capullo, which I don't know that he really has any other Marvel credits. And it's just cool. I mean, obviously his style it like both didn't evolve, but also drastically evolved between his like Spawn era, which this is fairly close to, and then eventually his Batman era, and even backwards from X-Force to Spawn.
You're forgetting to mention that Greg Capullo is a friend of the show.
Yeah, yes, he has appeared on the show by technicality.
Hey, we did talk to him before we filmed that video. Greg Capullo is a very, very nice guy.
He is.
The other notable part of the creative team here is writer Ron Zimmerman, who, as far as I know, his claim to fame is being a frequent guest on Howard Stern's show. And I guess his actual career is he's some kind of TV writer, but somehow someone let him write some Marvel comics at some point, including this dumb Jay Leno thing, but also the Marvel Max Rawhide Kid series.
Oh, wow.
He re-envisioned Rawhide Kid as a flamboyant game man, which, okay, sure, I don't really think we needed to do that, but okay, what do you have to say?
Cowboys.
But actually, what that really just means is it's Rawhide Kid running around, getting into duels, and just being very inappropriate, taunting people, and it really just comes off as like he's a sexual predator.
Oh.
Because, you know, some like weird middle-aged comedy writer who shows up on Howard Stern, I don't really want him writing any gay characters, let alone in the Old West.
No.
I just want to state that, number one, there is a guy at my elementary school named Ron Zimmerman who worked there, and when you said he was you started the T sound and you said teacher, my mind was going to be blown, but sadly that didn't happen. And two, all I remember that Rawhide Kid series is that, and then Chuck Dixon's comments about it where he was not happy.
As far as other creators and how they reacted to it, I have read that Stan Lee made a TV appearance in relation to publicity around this Rawhide Kid series, and like basically didn't entirely know what he was talking about, but was tasked with sort of defending the title on like a talk show or like on the news.
Sounds like an awful idea.
I really wish I could find that clip if it even exists, but I searched at some point for a little bit and I can't find evidence, actual evidence.
Instead, just watch the clip where Stan critiques Ron Liefeld drawing, because that's much more entertaining.
Ron Zimmerman's other major Marvel credit is Ultimate Adventures, which was the only totally original title in the Ultimate Universe. It's a shitty Batman and Robin parody, and it was part of the You Decide campaign alongside Marvel and the relaunched Peter David Captain Marvel volume, which was this weird PR stunt / bet between Bill Jemas and Peter David, where fans were supposed to decide which book would survive and the others would get canceled. The only problem is that 2 of the books involved in the bet were just like literally the 2 worst comics that Marvel was publishing probably within the past since like the crash of the industry. Whereas the other one, Captain Marvel, was this cult classic cosmic book, which a lot of people loved and which pulled from continuity and everything like that. So Ron Zimmerman, not the best comic book writer. So back into this stupid story, Pete gets into a misunderstanding fight with Kane, who's in town looking for Allison Mongrain, and he punches Kane in the back of the head right before he runs into Mongrain, and Mongrain just runs away. And then we get some of this backstory fed to us that Kane, I guess, tracked down Allison Mongrain right at the end of the Clone Saga, took the baby back from her, and then threw her in a lake or threw her in the river. But somehow in that short period of time, Mongrain had actually grown attached to the baby, which she had been tasked with kidnapping. And so through the years, she's like resented how she was involved in that, and she has this connection to Mayday. And so she's back in town to assassinate Normie and end the Osborn legacy. And then for like an issue and a half, the dumb Faces clan comes in and some fight happens, and I skipped almost all of that. Then Mayday's friend gets hospitalized for some reason. I think she was a innocent bystander in one of the fights. Then as Allison Mongrain is about to shoot Normie Osborn, Mayday steps in front of the gun. Also around this time, she's been like flirting with Normie Osborn, almost kisses him at a certain point, even though he has a serious relationship with Brenda Drago. But she steps in front of the gun, she takes off her mask and hugs Allison Mongrain, and she starts crying. And so issue 50, Spider-Girl number 50, final page ends with a Spider-Man No More splash page of Mayday walking away and the costume in a trash can. And I don't know what more you could ask for. It's kind of perfect.
I mean, all I'm gonna say is that if we flash back to the original, who really convinced Spider-Man to put the suit back on?
Marvel history is destroyed. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Number 51 is a fill-in by Sean McKeever and Casey Jones. It's not relevant at all, so I entirely skipped it.
Like the guy from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I wish. So I'm assuming maybe it's like a flashback, like a continuity insert.
It is. I flipped through it.
52, and then again, because I was skimming, I didn't fully understand 52. Because it starts off implying like Felicity is dreaming about being an actually effective superhero. But then later, like it definitely seems like she is an effective superhero. And so I didn't really understand. I didn't really follow this. Didn't really care to either, though. She has a new costume. She is no longer in the hoodie. She has like this more skin tight, weird, dark red thing. And it actually reminds me a lot of Iron Spider, besides the dumb arms.
The spider emblem itself is very similar.
It's almost actually it reminds me of like a mix between the Iron Spider and some of those stupid stealth suits from Big Time.
Yes, I hate those suits.
Uh, and Ron Friends is drawing this issue. And back to fashion, in this issue, she has huge shoes, like huge platform shoes. She still has the baggy jeans. They're a little bit, maybe a little bit baggier. She has a crop top on, and I think it's like an A-next crop top, maybe. But she has a fishnet bodysuit underneath,
Yeah,
which I think is kind of awesome.
I love it.
Um, and then like there's some status quo changes by the end of this arc, which I don't fully understand. I guess Allison Mongrain and Kane are like awkwardly roommates in an abandoned building, maybe? I didn't understand that part. I didn't understand that at all.
Give me a 6 series of that.
And the end of this series, I guess something happened in this issue when I wasn't reading it where Mayday like relearns her whole power and responsibility thing. And so obviously she's back in the costume post the no more moment. And that's Spider-Girl. Let's talk a little bit just generally. What do you guys think about Spider-Girl?
I think there's some really cool stuff in here. I think some really dumb stuff in here.
Pretty much.
I'm actually kind of. I might end up reading all of this eventually.
Yeah, I was actually. My question was going to be, especially Matt, because you've expressed a little bit of interest in this before. Were you like almost thinking like, oh shit, maybe I'm about to impulse buy that first complete collection?
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. This has like more secured my decision to read Spider-Girl.
I think that it seems like because we jumped so far ahead, and there are so many characters that are still around from that what if issue that I guess to be some sort of character arc and character development from point A to point B with just this smaller group of characters. I think that it sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come to like Moose.
Yeah.
Whoever Moose.
What I'm curious about is, so Marvel's doing these Spider-Girl complete collections, and I guess it's sort of helped by this ongoing Spider-Verse franchise shit, everything like that. But are we going to get a next complete collection?
Let's hope not.
I'm gonna say no.
Unfortunate. I think at some point I did make like a complete MC2 reading order, so I'll have to go find that.
Yeah, please do.
Sure
I want the whole Dark Devil story.
But I don't know. I really like MC2 because it's like I actually usually hate alternate universes. But I hate it when it's like, here's Peter Parker if he had 5 legs. Stuff, I don't know, stupid shit. Like I hate Earth X. I kind of hate Age of Apocalypse. And especially when it's like a one-off thing, but then they keep bringing it back like 100 times because people just like the alternate annoying designs, or like Old Man Logan and stuff like that. But MC2, it's like it's a slight splinter. It's directly following from Marvel at a certain point. It's all under like one guy's vision, pretty much. And it's also like it's like instead of the other alternate universes where it's like here's some dumb stupid angle where we're mixing something into the ice cream. In MC2 it's like here's what happened if we didn't fuck up or like insert ourselves and change shit. MC2 is like the realization of it's almost like an anti-Marvel time thing. Like and of course, the MC2 lasted so long that, of course, it had its own sliding time scale. But it's like, here is Cassie Lang as a major member of the Avengers. It's like Tony Stark, Captain America, Daredevil, all these motherfuckers are actually dead and they're not coming back. And it's also like almost everyone, as we discussed, is related to someone else, which is like both amazing and terrible. And especially with Spider-Man as the backbone, it's like, you know, the whole how the hell is Spider-Man's arch nemesis one of his closest friends' father? And it's just like that ridiculous legacy hero convenience where everyone goes to the same high school, all of their parents went to the same high school, all of their parents were superheroes, and now they're all superheroes.
Yep.
I kind of love MC2. It's pretty great.
It's really great.
And I think Spider-Girl, it's just such a, like, it doesn't, I can't fully explain it because it's literally just Ben Reilly's costume, but on a smaller character with like breasts. But and it's not even, it has nothing to do with the breasts, but there's just something really clean about the design. And I loved it on Ben Reilly as well, but I think Spider-Girl is just looks really great.
I think May wears it better.
Yep.
Yep.
So I think that's Spider-Girl.
Well, this was a fun deviation for an episode. What shit are we reading next week?
I think next week we're getting.
Is next week Ultimate?
I think we have a couple episodes before that.
Oh, do we?
No, I think it should be Ultimate.
Oh, it is? Oh, wow.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark Bagley's back, everybody.
Next week we're doing Spider-Girl, I think.
Yeah, we're coming back to it.
Tune in to next episode, and it'll probably be Ultimate Clone Saga. Otherwise, you'll get a surprise. Yep. Thanks for watching this one, and stay safe. Mo money, mo problems.